Hello, I'm happy to be with you again on YouTube on this very special program, which is called Walking with God. I've added to that in the garden because I like to think of all of life as a garden. The Bible says that when God created man, he created a garden for him, and he put man in that garden. I'd like to think of your being where God has placed you in life. Now, in order to really enjoy what has happened in your being placed in the garden, you have to do what Adam did, which is recorded in the book of Genesis, chapter 3. The Bible says that he walked with God in the cool of the day. I've been emphasizing the need to walk with God, to spend time with God, to talk with him. And really, even though it might not be a verbal discourse with God, he does communicate with us. He does it in a multitude of ways. Sometimes it's through nature. I had a memorial service today, and as I was describing the deceased, it was that she found great meaning in the world of nature around her. It was her spirituality. I don't know what yours might be today, but in your walk with God, I would hope that you take time to discover the world and your own life and God himself by walking with him. But as we walk with God, we know that something happens. It happened to the Israelites, it happens to us in life, and it is that we grow impatient. We grow impatient for the things maybe that we think we need and we want. So today, on this YouTube program, I want to discuss with you briefly the idea of walking with impatience. Impatience is a big part of our lives. When I was a child, my dad used to take the family for a ride. And sometimes we were asking him, are we there yet? How much longer do we have to wait? It was a matter of being impatient. As we grow older, impatience is a natural part of our lives. We sometimes grow impatient to get out of school. Very few children seem to be impatient about getting in school. They want to get out of school. But along with that, all of life is nothing but a process of impatience. It is when we grow up. As teenagers, we often wondered, when will we be old enough to smoke? Believe it or not, yes, that was even me. But I am not a smoker, never have been. Thank God for that. But there was an age when we could have permission to smoke, believe it or not. And in today's world, it's also, you have to be old enough to drink. I've been in the military, and I've watched young guys who were not of age, who just could hardly wait until they crossed that threshold of age in order to be free to drink. But that's only a small part of life. We know that people wait to get old enough to get married, or maybe to have their first child. And we know there are many, many grandparents, expectant grandparents, I should say, that want grandchildren. They become very impatient. I've had couples come to me and say, we are troubled by the fact that our parents are pushing us to have children so that they could have grandchildren. Well, it's not bad to want grandchildren, but we can become impatient. And in our walk, too, with life, we can become impatient with our age, the age of retirement. Many people have told me they have a calendar, and I've seen some of these calendars with the big X's on them. People who could not wait until the day they could walk off the job and collect their unemployment, or maybe their retirement and Social Security. Friends, there's a story in the Bible about impatience, and it shows how we can become impatient with our walk with God. Maybe some of you are impatient about the fact that Christ has not returned to this world. And we look around and we see all the troubles that are here. And we hear the old refrain which we find in Fiddler on the Roof. Isn't this the right time for the Messiah to come? So we grow impatient. We have to live in this world. It has its trials and tribulations. It has its difficulties. And there are many who just cannot wait to escape this world. And they would like to escape it by Jesus' coming and taking them out of this world. I don't know about all of that, but I do know there is a great deal of impatience. But let me read for you today something about the Hebrew people as they were journeying from Egypt, where they had been slaves. Moses delivered them, and now they're on their way to the promised land. The land the Bible says is the land of milk and honey, a land of opportunity, a land of freedom, where they could express themselves the way they wanted to. But on the journey, as is so true of many people who walk this life's journey, we grow impatient. I read for you today from the book of Numbers, and it's an interesting passage, chapter 21, and begins with verse 4. They, the Hebrew people, traveled from Mount Hor along the route to the Red Sea to go around Edom. But the people grew impatient on the way. They spoke against God and against Moses and said, "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the desert? There is no bread, there is no water, and we detest this miserable food." Did you know that that was in the Bible? We detest this miserable food. Have you ever had that experience? Maybe your food wasn't first class. And maybe you also, like these people, said, "We detest this. We don't have what we want." We had the promises that when we became believers and we began this walk with God, everything was going to be perfect. But we know sometimes children get ill. We get older, become incapacitated. There are many obstacles to this journey that we are taking. But the question is, will we let the impatience take over? Or will we develop patience? As Jesus said in that great parable of the sower, and as a gardener, I have to have patience, because when I plant the seed, it's not an immediate harvest, believe me. There are many problems that go along with that. We have to nurture the plant. Jesus says first the sprout, then the stalk, and then the ear, and finally the harvest. I think life is like that. We don't harvest until the right time. It's amazing, though, when we do harvest. I've talked to many people, and I've had it in my own life, if I might use myself as an example of a harvest. Waiting patiently, working it out, seeking God's will, asking for His way in my life. And then, when things are cleared out of the way, then the fruitfulness of life emerges. I can testify to that in my own life. And I would like to encourage you today not to be so impatient that you lose sight of the goal. The goal is, as God has said, a land of milk and honey. Figuratively speaking, for those of us today, but nevertheless, the fulfillment of a fruitful life. God promises it. It is yours in the power and in the love of Christ. May God bless you today. As I've shared with you, I hope that you will dial in again next week for the next sequence of walking with God.